Hello, friends. Welcome to another Thursday Night Live. Tonight, we are doing an introduction to card making. We're going to look at stamps and ink. This is part one of my month-long series that we're doing on Thursday nights. Going back to basics, right? Let's look at the basics of rubber stamping and card making. This is going to be great if you are brand new to card making, but even if you're a seasoned crafter, I bet you're going to find something that you didn't already know. Plus, I have lots of great card making inspiration for you as well. And we're going to make a handmade card. Don't worry about that. We always make something, right? If you are here and joining me live, leave me a comment. Let me know how long you have been rubber stamping or card making. And if you're watching the replay, special welcome to you as well. Love that you come later to watch these. So go ahead and leave me a comment. Let me know how long you have been card making or rubber stamping. If this is your first time here, welcome. I am Heidi with Onigo Stamping. I'm going to help you reconnect with your inner artist by using stamps, ink, and paper to make beautiful handmade cards and gifts, just like we're going to do tonight. So let's dive in. Christine, you've been card making for about 5 years. That is great. Love it. All right, let's dive in. I'm going to make my workspace look just a little bit bigger. And you can see I have it covered in stamps and ink. I'm going to look under my phone. I don't know if it's I thought I cleaned my phone, but it looks a little fuzzy. I don't know. All right, Shannon, it's been about 2 years. That's awesome too. All right. So I'm going to set the inks aside for a minute. I kind of piled them all up there to look pretty. And let's start by talking about different types of stamps. All right. So there are two basic types of stamps, and those are the photopolymer stamps and the cling stamps. So this is a photopolymer stamp. This is the everyday you and me stamp set, which I'm going to make a card with a little bit later. So it is photopolymer. Photopolymer is the clear stamps that you can see through. Okay. They're going to come like this, sandwiched between two pieces of plastic. And what you can do is you can peel the plastic off. There's one that is like really lightweight. I usually throw that one away. The heavier one I keep. But what you can do is you can take the stamps and they'll actually fit right in place on your box. All right. So I would take all of these off and add them to my box. And that's where I would store them. And I keep this piece because I like to put it over top. And that I find just kind of helps keep the stamps in place. Plus, I like to put spare parts that I might have cut out and not used. I keep them in the box too. So they stay on the other side and I just keep that clear in there. But that's personal preference. Those are the photopolymer stamps. So the other type of stamp is the red rubber cling stamp. These are your more traditional stamps, and they're going to come with a sticker sheet. You can see I've already taken off 3 of the stickers, but there's one sticker left. We're going to put that one together. And the stamps are like stuck into the red rubber. Now you can take these off. And these two, you could just leave in the case. I like to keep the red rubber, like the part that you punch it out of. I like to keep that and just use it. That way I make sure all my stamps go back in at the end because I can see if there's any holes. And it kind of keeps the stamps from touching the plastic, because once you put the stickers on, those stickers are really, really, really sticky. And sometimes if they stick to that plastic, it can be a little bit hard to get them up. So I kind of like it to go back in there. And then it's like not really smushed down on the plastic. So let's talk about how to mount these though. So they do come stuck in there. You just kind of got to punch them out, right? And then you have your sticker sheet. Now I'm going to show you how I mount them. This is not how Stampin' Up says to mount them. Stampin' Up says that you should mount them by taking off the backing to the sticker and then taking your stamp and sticking it down in the sticker and then peeling it up. That's not how I like to do it though. Let me show you how I do it, which is just a little bit different. I take a clear block. Now all of your stamps will need to be put on a clear block when you go to use them. We'll talk about the clear blocks in just a minute. But I grab one of my clear blocks and I pull the whole sticker off instead of just the sticker backing. And I put the whole sticker on my clear block and I push it down nice. Then I peel off the backing if I can get it. This is the tricky part. There we go. So I just peel off the backing, and that's going to be sticky now there too. super-duper sticky. All right. And then I take my stamp and I'm going to peel the backing off of that as well. And now I lay my stamp down on the table and I take my clear block, and you can see the edges. The edges of the sticker should line up with the edges of the stamp. And so I just very carefully put it down very, very slowly and pick that up. And I find that I get a lot more control to put my stamps together when I do it that way. When you go to take these stamps off the clear block, those stickers are really, really sticky. All right. I cannot stress that enough. They're really, really sticky. And you want to be very careful not to just grab onto the rubber, because what can happen is that can tear the cushion that's on there. So the red rubber stamps, they have a cushion. They have the red rubber, and then they have a cushion, and then they have a sticker. And if you just pull on the rubber, you could rip the cushion. Instead, I like to take my fingernail and just kind of get underneath the sticker and pull the whole thing off. Now, why are there two different types of stamps? Well, the red rubber is the traditional stamp. It gives you a very nice, clean, crisp image. Really good for fine lines and things like that. However, the photopolymer stamp sets, you can see through them, right? Which is really nice because then it's easier to get it placed in just the right spot. And they are a little bit cheaper to manufacture. So you're going to find that the photopolymer stamps are usually going to be a little bit cheaper or have a lot more pieces in them. All right, let's see. Let me know if you have questions. Y'all, if you have questions, leave them in the comments because I am here to answer questions tonight. All right, let's talk clear blocks. I have so much, there's so much to tell you. Let's talk clear blocks. This is probably my most used clear blocks. This is a size D clear block, and it's almost a square, not quite. It's a rectangle. This is just a piece of clear, heavy plastic. It does not bend. It's very hard. It is nice. It is beveled all the way around, so that kind of helps your fingers hold on to it. But they come in different sizes. So I'll show you. Here's kind of the rectangular ones, and there's one that's a size bigger. Actually, there's two sizes bigger. So there's that one, and then there's this really, really big one down here. I don't use these very often. I use these ones all the time. All right. So this is, let me see, D, C, and I bet B. D, C, and B, I use all the time. So some of your red stickers with stickers on them aren't sticking to the clear blocks anymore. I have not had that happen, Jill. I would try I would probably try taking, well, it depends how old the stamps are. Let me go back. It depends how old the stamps are. So Jill, if you can tell me how old those stamps are, that might make a difference. And I say that because Stampin' Up! Used to use a different cling sticker that did not cling as well, okay? And what you can do with that is you can use a little bit of two-way glue if you have like a two-way glue pen, and you can use that and add it to the sticker, and that will help it stick again. You can probably do that with the current one too. I have not had any of my current stamps not stick anymore. So if those were really not sticking anymore, I might try to take something else to them or try cleaning them first before I did anything else and see if that works. But then otherwise you could try getting like a two-way glue pen and letting the glue dry and then using that to stick it. So Jill, probably 5 years. Oh, that's so hard to say because that's going to be right on the edge of when they switched the sticker style. So I don't know. I can't help you more, except to say that if it really isn't working and you've tried cleaning it, I would grab a two-way glue pen and put some of that on there. All right. Those are the rectangle, the kind of squarish rectangles. And then there's a couple of big rectangles. There's a really big one. I barely use this one. Okay. This is a I. But then this one I use fairly often. This is an H. It's good for sentiments and things. So those are your clear blocks. They're good to clean them every so often. Just scrub them up. Take a scrubby brush, scrub off all the gunk off of them. But that is, let me see, that is clear blocks. I'm trying to make sure that I told you everything about the clear blocks that I wanted to tell you. All right, let's move on to ink because there's different types of ink. There's a lot of different types of ink. These are Stampin' Up's classic ink pads. All right. They are a dye ink, and that means that they are water-based. They will run when you get them wet. You can use them for watercoloring because they're water-based. And they're just general all over good stamp pads. Let me go ahead and open this up. So to open up Stampin' Up! Ink pads is a little bit different than other ink pads because they have a special design that actually stores your ink pad upside down for you. And this is going to help keep the ink in your pad towards the surface, which makes it better to use. It's just going to help you ink up your stamps better. So what we want to do is we grab on to the part with the thumb and we just pull it down, and then slide it in. And that's going to hold it right in place. And you can see that the ink pad is raised above the sides. That way, if you want to do it like this, you can. It's no problem. Or if you have a very big stamp, it's going to easily ink up. Now, if your stamp or if your ink pad is too wet, because sometimes they come really, really juicy. If you are not getting a nice impression, like it looks really blobby or something, what you might want to do is take a take a plastic spoon and just push your ink out towards the outside. This one isn't super juicy, so it's not going to do much, but that's just going to move your ink towards the outside. Then you can stamp, and then once you store the ink pad, it'll go back. It'll go back to where it was. So just a really easy way to get that ink out of the way when you don't need it. I was going to grab, let me see. Oh, perfect. Let's grab a re-inker. This is the re-inkers. So the re-inkers from these, they come in little bottles, and you can just take them and just add. Sometimes some of them, the ink comes out faster than others. Some of them, I think the ink is a little thicker, or the hole in the bottle is different size. I don't know. But you just want to put little drops, and you can put little drops all over. Okay. This one actually looks like it's starting to get dry. And I try to keep my ink pads inked. I try to re-ink them before they get too dry, because I have found that sometimes if the ink pads get really, really dry, they don't like to accept more ink as readily. Whereas if they're still a little wet, they're going to take that ink really easily. So you would just do this all over the whole ink pad until it's all ready to go again. I'm not going to do that though, because it's taking me a minute, because that ink is not coming out of the re-inker bottle very quickly. So there you go. This is a foam pad. So it's very, very squishy. So when you ink up your stamp, and I'm going to show you this when we actually make a card, you want to tap very lightly. You don't want to squish it down, because you're going to get way, way too much ink, because this is a foam pad and it's very squishy. All right. So to close it, we're going to grab onto the end again where there's some space for our fingers, and just pull it and flip it over. Now, if it is really tight and you're having trouble moving it, you can take some like chapstick and run that when you open this up. Run that along here, or run that along here. That is just going to kind of like grease it up a little bit. All right. Let's move on to the next kind of ink. I'm going to pull out my white craft ink. This is craft ink. This is a pigment ink. See, it says pigment on there, which means that it is a permanent ink. It is thick and goopy. It takes longer to dry. So the dye inks dry very, very quickly. You can stamp, and then they're going to dry almost immediately. The pigment ink is going to take a little bit longer to dry. The only color that Stampin' Up! Has in pigment ink right now is the white. So that's why I pulled this out to show you. But a very similar ink pad, I'm not going to stick my finger in that. That'd be silly. It's just much goopier. It's going to stay wet longer. You can use it with heat embossing much more easily, because your embossing powder is going to stick to it. All that kind of good stuff. So that is a pigment ink pad. And then there's a couple of black ink pads. Let's talk about black ink pads. I have both a jet black stays on here and a tuxedo black memento ink. These are two black inks. They are very, very different though. The memento ink, this one here, this is a water-based ink. It is permanent, but water-based. It is good for using Stampin' Blends markers. And we will talk about this more in week 3 when we talk about coloring. But when you're using Stampin' Blends markers and you're using an alcohol ink, it's not going to run. Whereas if you use a solvent-based ink, it would run. So Memento ink is a general overall good black ink pad. and really good for using Stampin' Blends. StazOn ink is a solvent ink pad, and it says that right on there. Look at that, solvent ink pad. It is a solvent ink pad. It makes a really, really nice dark black. It is permanent. You can watercolor with it, which is really nice. You can stamp with a StazOn pad. You can stamp on non-porous surfaces with it as well. So if you're using window sheets, it's going to work fabulously for that because it's not going to rub off, right? Once it's dry, it is on there. So StazOn's really good for that. Very, very permanent. It is not good for Stampin' Blends because once you put that alcohol marker with the solvent ink, it's going to run. But it's great for watercoloring because it is waterproof. Okay. When I open this, there is a little plastic cover. You want to make sure you keep that cover. Do not get rid of it. All right. This helps keep your ink pad nice and wet. I just go like that to take it off. That way I don't have to touch it. And it falls in the ink pad. I've heard some people will stick it in the top of their ink pad with a glue dot or something like that. I just leave mine loose. But you can see that this ink pad is a little bit different. And this is true for the Memento as well. Let me show you. These are both very, very similar ink pads. They look the same. Wow. Luckily, they have stickers on the back so you can tell which one is which because they look the same when you have the tops off. This is a felt pad, right? So this is a felt or linen pad. It is a lot harder. And we're going to see this when I ink up a stamp with it. It's a lot harder. You can be a little bit more forceful with it. I often will twist and turn my stamps a little bit to get them nice and inked up. It's not squishy like the classic ink pads. It doesn't smoosh down like the foam ink pads. It is much harder. This is more like your classic office ink pad feel, right? This is a linen or felt pad. And that is true for both of those blacks. All right, one last type of ink that I want to show you. This is a Versamark ink pad. We will talk about this again when we do heat embossing in installment number 4. But this is like a clear ink pad, all right? And you can see mine has speckles in it. It's okay. It is a clear ink pad. When you stamp it, and actually I'll show you this because I wasn't going to do any of this evening. So if I can find a little piece of colored cardstock, which I cleaned up, so I might not be able to. Of course. Oh, look, here's a little circle. I have a circle. So if you take a piece of colored cardstock and you take a stamp and you stamp this on there, it is going to leave a little bit of impression, and that will not go away. It's not going to dry and go away. It's a really neat way for making a tone-on-tone color. Really easily, you can use, whatever color cardstock you have, that's the color it's going to look like. It's also good for heat embossing, so it has kind of a dual purpose. So that is the Versamark. They call it a watermark pad because it leaves kind of this watermark look, but it is a thicker, goopier ink, stays stickier longer, takes a minute to dry, and it has a foam pad as well. All right, since I got my stamp dirty, let's clean it up. To clean up your stamps, I'm going to use my Stampin' Chamois. This is the Stampin' Chamois. It is wet. I keep it in an empty stamp case, and I just keep it wet. I close the stamp case. It stays wet most of the time. I have not had any troubles with that. When it comes, it is much closer to like this color, maybe even a brighter color. This one's getting pretty old. I thought I had a new one sitting in my bin that I was going to show you, and I don't. All you need to do, though, is just wet this with water and slide your stamp over it, and that's going to clean it up. If your stamp is really dirty, what I will often do is I take my chamois and I fold it in half so it gets like a double thickness, and then I kind of like really squish it down, and that gets into all those crevices, right? So this is the chamois. It does come, when it first comes, it's kind of soft and malleable, and you can just get it wet under the water. But if you let it dry out, can you hear that? It gets to be like hard as a rock, right? Look at this. It is hard. It does not bend. And this is just dried out. All you have to do is just take this and run it under the water and wet it all down again, and it will be good to go. If it gets all the way dry, it will take a little moment for it to soak up the water. But just keep running the water over it. It will work fine. So I just wanted to show you that. So, all right. Let me see. I think I talked about everything. I think I did everything. So we're going to make a card. Should we make a card? I'm going to actually start one of the other stamps we have. This is, I actually, my sample card that I made, I used pattern paper, but then I was like, no, I'm going to use a background stamp because we also have these giant background stamps. These are just red rubber stamps, and I often don't put the backs on them. They're just red rubber stamps that are giant, like the full size of a piece of cardstock. So I often just like leave them like that, and I'll just put them on the table. Now they will fit if you wanted to. This is why we have this giant ink pad, and you could put, or this giant clear block, and you could put them on there. I usually don't. I just put it on the table. When I am using, you love this stamp? Yeah, it's so pretty. When I am using this background stamps, I usually just leave them on the table and I ink them up from the top. All right, so I'm going to grab, you know what? We're going to use the Versamark for this, just to be different. We're going to use the Versamark. So I'm going to grab my Versamark. I'm just going to take the top off, and then I ink it up from the top. It's just easier this way. When the stamps get really big, it's easier to ink them this way. So I'll just smoosh that all over, get that nice and inky. There we go. And then I have a piece of Flirty Flamingo. This is 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And I'm just gonna lay it on top. All right, then I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper. I'm going to lay the scrap paper on top, and then I'm just going to give it a good rub. And this is just a good way to do these giant stamps. We'll give that a nice little squish all over, and then we can pull it up and see what we get. So there we go. We just have a nice stripe on there, right? And you can see that tone on tone color that we get with the Versamark. Now to clean this, I'm going to grab my chamois. Instead of trying to pick up the stamp again, this is a little bit different because it's a giant stamp. I'm just going to take the chamois and wipe it off with the chamois. I'm going to turn the chamois inside out. It's less gross on this side. I really should just get a new chamois. This one's looking pretty tired. But you can, when it starts to knot, it gets a weird feel. The chamois, once it gets to the point where I'm like, I don't want to use this anymore, it feels different. That's when I decide to get rid of it. Right now, this still feels like it hasn't started breaking down. So, all right. So that was the Painted Stripes stamp. This is one of the brand new online exclusives that just came out on Tuesday. So we'll just set that aside. My fingers are kind of a little bit inky. I got some of that Versamark on them, and it's a sticky ink. So we're just going to take a little bit of hand sanitizer and wipe my hands off. All right. Now I'm going to use the Everyday You and Me stamp set. I love this. It's got these pretty flowers. And what I really love is these are a bold stamp. So there's a little bit, two kind of different stamps. I like to say there's two different stamps. There's variations of all of these, but this is what I would call a bold image stamp, whereas this one is a line art image stamp, okay? This one you would probably color in. Your bold stamps, you're just going to stamp them with ink. So that's what I'm going to do. I have some of these on blocks already, and I'm going to grab a piece of basic white cardstock. This is, if I remember, 2 3/4 by 4 inches, all right? And I'm going to ink this up with I'm going to start with Flirty Flamingo. All right, so I'm going to ink up this large one with Flirty Flamingo. And I'm just going to stamp that right in the corner. And I think that's all of Flirty Flamingo I'm going to use. I'm going to put that aside. Oh, no, you know what? I want to do one more. I'm actually going to do a second generation. So if you want to get a little bit lighter color, you can ink up your ink pad or ink up your stamp it on your scrap paper, and then stamp it again. And you're going to get two different colors, which is a nice way to get variation. All right, put aside the Flirty Flamingo, and I'm going to grab the Peach Pie, which we can see the ink is blending in. I might get some funny flowers here. I'm going to stick to one side. So just going to add these in. going to do, let's do one more second generation over here. There we go. So just kind of making this burst of flowers over here. And then I'm going to use my Granny Apple Green. And I'm going to add some leafy leaves to this. Let's see if I can line this up. Mess it up. I went a little too fast. We got to make sure that we get a nice impression there. So remember, with these foam pads, we're just doing tap, tap, tap very lightly. My sister-in-law likes to say that you should kiss it like your mother, not your spouse. So, and I'll stamp that over there. And then I think I'm going to do a second generation one. So we'll just stamp this off on some scrap paper. And then I'm going to stamp it like that. All right. And we just have a nice sprig of flowers down there. Now I am going to use my StazOn because I want a really, really nice black, a really nice dark black. I'm going to use StazOn, and I am using for this the Kindest Expressions stamp set. I want to use this thanks stamp down here. So we're going to pull that one out. It's so pretty. And I'm going to put this on the block. Let's see if it fits on. Yeah, it'll fit on this block. Just like that. And now I'm going to ink this up. Now this, see how I turn this? Because this is that felt pad and it's a little bit, it takes a little bit more abuse. And sometimes you gotta give it to it, right? All right, so that's nice and inky on there. And I'm just going to take this and push it down, let it really sink in there, and then pick it up. Now, one of the things I don't think I mentioned, isn't that pretty? When you are putting your stamps on your blocks, you do want to try to get the stamp to match the block in size, because if you were to take a small stamp and put it on a big ink pad or a big clear block, especially the photopolymer stamps, you are more likely to get ink on the sides of your block. All right, you push it down in, get out the same color. We'll take this peach pie, we push it down in, and if we like twist our hand a little bit, we suddenly have ink on our block. And then when you go to stamp it, chances are you do that again, you rock it a little bit too much, and you end up with ink on the side of your paper. All right, so it's really good if you can get your clear block and your stamp to be kind of the same size. You want to make sure that the stamp fully fits on the clear block, but you don't want the block to be too big for the stamp. Now, I did use StazOn. When I'm cleaning with StazOn, you can just wash this with water, but if you want to, you can use a StazOn cleaner. All right, so this is my StazOn cleaner, and it has a little, like, I don't know, a felt top to it there, and you just scrubby that on there, and you can see that that pulls up that StazOn. Now, people have differing opinions. All right, this is a controversial subject that I may be bringing up right now. Some people don't think that you should use StazOn with your photopolymer, your clear photopolymer stamps. Some people say that it's not good for them. I've never had a problem. I use StazOn with my photopolymer stamps all the time. Now, this cleaner, I do find that it could leave a little bit of a residue. So if I use the cleaner on my clear stamps, which I don't usually, but if I do, oh shoot, did you see that? The top came off in the cap. All right, it is chaos on my desk right now. That was really good the first time I opened it because I knew that that happens sometimes. And then the second time, I totally forgot. So we'll just very carefully wipe it up with a tissue. All right. And I'll try to remember what I was saying. If you use StazOn cleaner on your clear stamps, which I don't really recommend, although I have done it. I've definitely done it. Just make sure you wash them off really good with water. All right. You just want to get all of that cleaner off of there. And I like to wash off the red rubber ones too. And oh my goodness, is this a mess? Ooh. StazOn cleaner lasts forever unless you dump it on your table. All right. So I'm going to try to get this out of here. And it's leaving ink. There we go. I will probably come in later with something and give this a good clean. Oh my goodness. All right. Whew. Actually, I'm going to grab a lens cleaner and just wipe off my table because it, like I said, it's kind of oily. The StazOn cleaner has a certain oiliness to it, and it feels kind of gross. It is not on my card, Patricia. We are all good. It is all over my table, though. At least I don't think it got on my card. Move those pieces out of the way. I'm going to wash off my fingers and wash off my stamp. This is why I keep lens cleaner cloths right by my desk, is for things like this. So I'm just going to clean this all up. Ew. I was just going to clean up that oiliness of that. Clean off my stamp case. Oh, that's so much better. I need a new stamp case. Look how gross that is. Clean that. All right. Onward and upward. Let's put our card together, shall we? Like this again. Definitely have a ink-free desk now. All right. So let's put our card together. You love seeing me deal with the mess. Yeah, it happens. Messes happen. It's fine. So I have a piece of Flirty Flamingo. It is 8.5 by 5.5. I have scored it at 4.25. Next week, we're going to talk about paper, about cutting paper, about layering paper, about pattern paper, all things paper. So I'm going to give this a good squish with my bone folder. And then I'm going to adhere this striped one to the front there. So next week, it's going to look like I'm live. I'm cheating again because I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be in North Carolina next week for Stampin' Up's big onstage event. This is kind of their big demonstrator event of the year. So if you want to keep up with me next week, make sure you're watching my stories because I'll probably be sharing lots of photos and sneak peeks in my stories. If you don't want to see sneak peeks, then don't follow my stories. But we get to see the new catalog. We're going to get to see the new ink colors. So much good stuff we're going to see next week. So really excited. But I will have a video for you Thursday if I get it recorded. And next Thursday, we're going to talk about paper. So, all right, I put that on a piece of basic black. The basic black is 2 7/8 by 4 1/8. I have to do math in my head. And then this, I am adhering to a piece of Flirty Flamingo that is 3 1/4 by 4.5. Just like that. And then I'm going to put this on the front here with some Stampin' Dimensionals. And Stampin' Dimensionals, if you don't know, are just little foam pieces. I'm to the end of mine, but they're just little foam pieces with stickiness on both sides that just help you give a little bit of lift to your pieces. So I'm just going to put some dimensionals on there. And I use the whole sheet, so I cut the edges into bits. Use everything. There we go. We'll peel the little backs off of those. And then add them to my card front. You like this? Oh, thank you. I'll show you the other one too that I made. And that one I used pattern paper on, but I decided to stamp the background on this one just to do something a little bit different. Now let's add some blingy bling to this. Can I find the bling I want? I don't know. I just have it. There we go. All right. I'm using the iridescent faceted gems, which are super pretty. They're super shiny. We're going to use those. I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool. And just add some of these in here. Let's see, let's add a big one. Down here. And I got to get another small one. There we go. All right. Super quick and easy card. Thank you. I'm so glad you guys like it. Super quick and easy. And it works with all sorts of flowers. So there we go. And then this is the one that I did with the Refreshed Beauty pattern paper. So you can see it's just a Flirty Flamingo pattern paper. They're very similar. Yeah. So there you go. Oh, let me show you the other couple cards. I made kind of a rustic card. This one I used the Country Woods, and I stamped the flowers in Petal Pink and Calypso Coral, and I cut them out. This set actually has dies with it too, so I cut them out with the dies and put that on there. And this one I used the Patterns of Friendship stamp set, which is also a new stamp set. It's super cute. Super, super cute. All right. And then finally, I did this one. Now, this one I stamped a whole piece of white with those big flowers in Peach Pie. And you can see I stamped twice or 2 or 3 times each time. I added black centers to that, and then I just added some pink dots in there. The sentiment is from that same Everyday You and Me stamp set. So much joy. Like I said, these are really geared more towards scrapbooking, but I thought that would work for a card too. And then I just added some strips of cardstock under there. And this is punched with the Heartfelt Hexagon punch. So really quick and easy too. You love the joy card. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, I thought that turned out really cute too. And it's so easy, right? There's no coloring. They go so quickly. I mean, I like coloring, but also I like not coloring. I like just stamping. So that is it for this evening. I'm going to be back next week, Tuesday. Tuesday, actually, I will already be gone, but I have recorded that video. So there will 100% be a video on Tuesday for you. Next week, Tuesday, we are doing a fun fold card, and I think y'all are going to love it. It's so easy. So watch for the dimensions. I might actually even put the measurements for it in my email on Saturday. Otherwise, watch for the description of the video on Monday afternoon. Grab the pieces and then come make a card with me on Tuesday, because we're going to make a great fun fold card. I hope that you all have a fabulous, fabulous weekend, and I'll be live with you again. I will be live with you again in a week and a half after I get back from North Carolina. So have a great week next week, and check out the videos as we continue this introduction to card making series.